Hello everybody and welcome back to Operation Logistics, where we're still puzzling over why our pathfinding is properly calculating the entry costs on our first world hex and our final world hex, but not any of the others. So, one of the things that I'm wondering is, does it have to do with this? Now, we know that if we comment out the world hexes to consider, that this takes an exponentially long time. We know that the biome hexes to consider slow it or speed it up substantially as well, but I'm going to comment that out for debug purposes and just see if it's somehow related to that, and I believe, if I recall correctly, that it is. But we're just going to check that quick. I'm approximately 45% sure that it's related to that. And by that I mean like 80% sure, because I remember that it's in some way related to it. And if that's the case, that will help us narrow this issue down. I don't currently understand what is going on there, but, you know, whatever. This is definitely going slower in the generation than the previous runs. It might have something to do with the fact that the editor has a memory leak, potentially, and so it's garbage collecting much more frequently. I mean, that's certainly something that we should consider. Yeah, that took 54 seconds. Okay, well, we're going to do a relatively short pathfind here, because we know that this is going to be kind of slow. So we're going to go ahead and create a route, select that route, and we're going to head up. We were like here. We'll head to like here. This is still going to take a while. Let's go ahead and pathfind to there. And it's going to take like 20... Nope, not 20 seconds, like 5 seconds or so. And we can see, looking at this, that it is indeed pathfinding correctly here, except we can see that there's a jump here. It thinks that these two are connected clearly. Or no, it thinks that this is connected here. Hex number 32 connected to hex 15. That's intriguing, to be sure. But that's not currently the scope of what we're trying to figure out. What we're currently trying to figure out... Oh, hello. No, the biome hex culling is not related to that. Okay. Good to know. Good to know. So biome hex culling is not related to the issue that we're having. Is world hex culling? Now this shouldn't actually be substantially slower, now that I think about it. The biome hex culling should pretty much take care of this. Right? That should be the same thing. Because the biome hex culling already contains the world hex info. Which means that theoretically, we could comment out this. We still need to pass in, or we still need to run the world hex exclusion up here, because we need it for the biome hex exclusion. But the biome hex exclusion should take care of the world hex exclusion. Unity, you alive in there? There you are. Okay. So theoretically, here's what I expect. No change, maybe a tiny % increase, like a 1% increase in speed here, at best. Not in this generation, but in the pathfinding. We'll see if that ends up happening. I mean, we don't have a timer set up for the pathfinding right now, so that's not really something that we're going to be too concerned about. Come on, generation. I should really be, like, restarting Unity between episodes, I feel like. It's a little bit extreme, the memory leak. Like, it doesn't free up all of the memory that we allocate with our procedural generation. It's just a little awkward. Okay. So what I expect here is literally no change. So we're going to go ahead and purchase this field, and we're going to put in a route there. And we will see if we get literally no change. We'll pathfind all the way over to here. Edit route, and bam. Okay, that all looks good, because it's in the first hex. And then in the second hex, it just does a straight shot. So as expected, that's pretty much exactly the same. Basically the same performance, maybe ever so slightly faster. I mean, it should be ever so slightly faster. So technically, we don't need this. That's pretty clear at this point. We don't need the world hex inclusion. We just need the biome hex inclusion. So then we would leave out the world hex inclusion. And there we go. We still need to run the pathfind in world hexes because we need it for the biome hex inclusion. We need to cull that down to make that reasonable, but that's fine. So, the question then is, what exactly is going on here? So let's go down to our pathfind building to vector 3. This returns a list of vector 3s. Now, we know that there is an issue with our generation of our entry points. We know that for an absolute fact. Now, one thing I'm wondering here, current.building hex. What is current? Current is an int 3. Equals building hex manager.road entries I.hex index. And then we just grab the building hex position that way, .square magnitude. So maybe we've got an issue with our get building hex position? I wouldn't think we had an issue with that. So we know for a fact that there's an issue here, and I'm just going to put down a known issue in my spreadsheet here. So, known issue, and this is going to be simply get nearest entry point, and I'm going to mark down that it's hex manager. Hex manager.get nearest entry point doesn't always return the nearest entry point, strictly speaking. Okay. There we go. So that's a known issue. And we're just going to leave it at that for now. We'll come back to this. It is a fairly large issue, but as of right now, the priority remains getting that pathfinding working properly, because as of right now, it really isn't. And I keep coming back to the problem has to be the get entry cost. So if our 2 building is a road here, then we need that. Yeah, if our current building that we're considering is a road, then we check to see that we're within the same world and biome hex. If we are not, then we know that we are connected because it's in the adjacency. We know that for a fact, because this is only called on things that are within the adjacency. And then we know for a fact that everything that is on a different biome or world hex that is in adjacency with something on a separate one is connected via road, because only roads connect over. So then we check to see if it's on the same road. World hex equals manager blah 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 location.world hex. And then the biome hex store equals location.biome hex. And then our current building hex equals get building hex by index location. And then our from building hex equals manager.business.hexmanager.get building hex by index from building.location. Well, one thing, we're using building hexes here. Building hexes are a virtual sort of thing. They only exist sometimes. Perhaps we should be using something a little bit more concrete, like the int3 itself. I mean, we are using that here. But the is adjacent on road here? Like, we don't necessarily know that the building hex, technically speaking, exists. So maybe what we should be doing is have this be an int3, int3a, int3b. Now obviously we're not going to be able to pass this in, strictly speaking, so we should do location, and then from building dot location, and then down here location and from building dot location. And then the question becomes, do we even need these building hex references here? Answer appears to be no. Okay, so we can get rid of those. Now this is heavily broken at this point, and we basically need to rethink how we're going to be doing this. So this is a list of building hexes. I don't like that. I feel like we need to go in and change the roads to a list of int3s. Like that. Now that's going to break a lot of things. Like this. This will be a list of int3s as well. This will be a list of int3. And a list of int3. And then we'll need to, when we generate this, make it be, instead of a list of building hex, it would need to be a list of int3. There we go. Now the question is, current hex here, do we actually have locational information on this? I believe we do. Or we can get it. We set it up down here, perhaps? So we've got 3 errors here, obviously. This would need to be a list of int3. This would need to be a list of int3. And that creates even more errors. Oh boy. We don't have a transform.position for that, but what we can do is we can do a hex manager, or rather, our road index +1. We would pass in something like hex manager dot get position. I forget what we called this. Is it just manager? Yeah. Manager dot get. This would need to be get building hex position. So this one. And we'd pass in this. And then not any of this. Like that. So we fix it like that. And then we can do the same thing right here. Excellent. Only 7 more errors. Okay, so we need to fix this down here. So instead of adding current hex, we need to have I guess we could do something like manager dot get building by position, and then current hex dot transform dot position. That, of course, returns us a building, and then we would do dot location, but we're setting up the buildings right now. So we can't guarantee that that's good to go. We actually, I think, need to come back to this a little bit. We need to set up, like, we know what our world hex is. Do we know what our biome hex is? I assume we do. Yeah, we have our biome hex here. So we could do like new int3, and then we'd pass in hex index for the world hex. Sneezing is exciting. Okay, so hex index, and then we would pass in our biome hex dot hex. Do we have like a biome hex dot location? We have a vector 3 position. We have an int3 indices. We could do it that way. We'll just do this, so indices dot biome hex. And then this would be what? I? Actually, no. This would be like current hex dot hex index. Like that. Okay. That gets us our int3. And then down here, our row.index of subhexmanager.subhexes I. So this would need to be essentially let's see, we know, I guess we could do like manager.get. We need to return like an int3. But we can't really do an int3 from a building hex because, like I said, that's a virtual thing. It may or may not exist. So what we could do is something. Let's see, int index equals our row.index of, and then that would be looking for a particular int3, which in this case is subhexes I. So we're just iterating through the buildings on the biome hex. So what we can do then is we can do index of new int3 biome hex dot indices dot world hex biome hex dot indices dot biome hex I. And that should do exactly the same thing, theoretically. Okay, 3 more of these to go, but I do need to put a cut in here, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. Next episode, we will finish this up, and hopefully this will fix it. See you all then.